Well, thank you for joining me today for another Alex on Tech and ITY video. I'm joined today by David Phua. He is the CEO of Performance Education. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, David, let's start at the beginning. And can you please tell us a short version about how Performance Education started?
Sure. We founded in about 2006, initially by Owen Firth and Matt Reed, who were the co-founders, who identified a need in the market where, Owen Firth at that point was running a recruitment firm specializing in financial recruitment. And what he identified was there was a real gap in terms of, highly skilled applicants who didn't necessarily have the communication skills to be able to take that first step in their careers. So we started off as an English provider, as a business English, corporate English training provider, and from there we evolved into providing a bit more business related skills. So helping people understand the Australian workplace, helping people understand the business environment, and to be able to integrate into that. When the professional year came about in 2008, we were one of the first providers that was accredited to deliver the program, and we've been delivering it ever since. And our core, at the heart of everything we do, really is fundamentally about helping graduates who have come to Australia and want to live in Australia but can't get their professional careers started. We help them get their career started.
So, as you say, you're helping the interns and graduates to get their career started. But obviously, from what you've told me, it's a lot more in depth than just getting an intern place for a few weeks at a company. I mean, we've all heard of the interns' experiences. It was even that famous movie, The Intern, with Robert De Niro.
It was,
probably slightly older age bracket than you would normally look after. But how have you made this experience so rewarding, both for students and for companies? And the students obviously are carefully chosen.
Yeah, look, I suppose at the end of the day, as I said, at the heart of everything we do, it's really about helping people. You can run a program, you can do lots of different things for different reasons, but if you're doing it for the right reasons, and we believe we are, which is, we know Australia has a skills gap. We know that, particularly in the IT sector, there is a skills gap, skills shortage rather, and we're trying to help people fill that. With the students, the great thing about international students when they do come to Australia is the vast majority of them are really hardworking and they're really determined to be successful at what they do. What they lack in a lot of instances is the communication skills. In many cases, the confidence and the belief in themselves to be able to take on that challenge and actually take that first step. And I think from an employer's perspective, to be really honest, there is I think with any sort of graduate recruitment, there is a fear about what you're getting. Just because somebody's done well on paper doesn't necessarily translate to it being a great employee. Particularly when you overlay that with cultural differences, international students, etc., it becomes a bit challenging. And I think what we've helped to do and what we certainly try and do is to demystify that, make it a bit more approachable, both for the candidate but also for the actual employer as well. The experience that we've had and the feedback that we've got from our hosts and our students has been that it's intimidating. Certainly from a student perspective, it's massively intimidating when you're looking for your first job. You're in a different country. You don't have that sort of network that you typically would. This is a bit of an introduction to them, and we all know that the big challenge with Australia and the Australian recruitment market is everyone says you've got to have work experience and it's got to be work experience in Australia. But then the great conundrum of that is how you get work experience without work experience. So, this is about providing the opportunity for them to get in a safe environment where they're mentored, where they're looked after by their host company and they're working in their field very specifically, or getting taught the skills that they need in order to then work in their field. So it's the course itself, the program itself is very structured and makes sure that there are assurances and insurances for students and for the hosts, and we make sure that we do the best thing we can for both of them so that they both get a good experience out of it.
Is there something that you wish companies would know before contacting you?
Yeah, look, I think I think firstly that it's approachable. We're approachable, and that the concept of taking an intern is approachable. They're not. A few years ago, I think there was a fair bit of negative press about the concept of internships. Certainly, from our perspective, our program is completely accredited. It's a registered course, and we have in place the correct measures to be able to protect host companies and students, for that matter, and make sure that it's done in a structured, proper sort of format. We're happy to talk to companies about how we can work with them. We're happy to provide support for them in terms of training templates, support systems, etc., to be able to help walk them through that sort of first process of taking an intern. So it's very much about creating a supportive environment for the host and also for the intern, to make sure that both of them get the best experience that they can.
So, what are some of the companies that you've worked with? I see some big names on your website, and how many have you worked with, and how many of the interns' lives have you changed by helping them be placed?
Yeah, look, we've worked with about 7,000 companies across the period of time that we have. Companies like Mirvac, Gucci, Amazon, BNP Paribas, Hilton Hotels, the Amora Hotels. Companies like the Red Cross as well. And we work with a vast sort of range of them. In that sort of period, the period that we've been operating, we've had about 25,000 students go through the course. And one of the great things about our program is, when host companies take on an intern, a lot of times they're looking to take it on, for experience. So they want to give a junior manager a potential to learn to manage, so to mentor somebody and sort of grow that way, which is a great way of doing it. A lot of times they have a specific project that they're working on. They need a little bit of support on that. So it's it creates it helps to fill a need that they've got. And from a student's perspective, when you think about a student that does an internship with us or does the professional year program with us, they're just screaming out for an opportunity, and they're really keen for that opportunity. And when they do get that, they're extremely grateful, and they tend to put their heart and soul into it. So what we find, which is amazing, is that 1 out of 3 of our students gets actually employed through that process, which is fantastic. When you look at graduate unemployment rates, to have that kind of return is fantastic. And of those students, of the cohort, about 92% of them are working within 6 months of the program. And the feedback we get from them is that, they come into the course not necessarily knowing what to expect, but through the program, through what we try and do with them, they start to learn, well, actually, I do have an opportunity to get a job. I do actually have an opportunity to start my career here. I have been given an opportunity, and I'm going to take it. And they work really hard to get that, which is really rewarding, I think, from our perspective. And it's really why we do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's the percentage of students that get placed? So 30% is pretty good. I mean, that's the number of students that actually are hired by the company after they've gone through the intern process. And I guess some of those companies are like, well, we like you like us, you already know what to do. Come on board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no obligation from the host. We don't expect them to employ somebody. There's no demands that they have to make. That we make on them that they have to take somebody. But I think, as I said, what we find is that students, when they get in there, or the interns when they get in there, they make a real difference. They really want to make a difference. They want to try. And it's often the case, I think, with employers where you have somebody who you take on for whatever reason. And as that sort of goes on, you go, actually, we can't do without this person. We really need this person. You create a role for them. I think it's testimony to the type of people that we get through the program, the students that we have, the determination that they have to make a life here in Australia.
Do you have a really great intern story that really sticks out over the years you've been in business?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of them. There's lots of stories that we have, and I think for me the biggest success that I have, and I've been in the company now for 10 years. I helped sort of open the Melbourne office, and so I don't have as much contact with students as I used to. But I remember in the early days I had a student who was going to withdraw from our program because he was having some financial difficulties, and he was thinking, well, look, I'm not actually going to get a job. I'm probably going to go back. And he was from India. He said, it's too costly for the family. I think I'm going to return home. And I remember speaking to him, going, look, you're this close. Stay the course, which I think is the phrase du jour. Stick to it and give it an opportunity, because you never know what's around the corner. And we found him a really great internship, and this guy put his heart into it. And I remember he rang me when he not long after, and he said, look, I really want to thank you, because I was prepared to give it up. I was prepared to go back home. I didn't think it would happen. You convinced me that it could. You made me believe in myself. And what I did was I took your words to heart, went and did the internship, and I got offered a job with them. And that's magic. And there are lots of stories like that. We have members of our team across, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Perth who do really good work and are really passionate about what they do. Who provide additional support for students, making sure that they can go over their CVs, they help them prepare for interviews, and when you get the feedback from the students, they go, oh, "Thank you so much, Adam or Annie or whoever it is, for the support that you gave me, because with that support, I was able to actually secure a job. I didn't think I could, but I got it." And we regularly get those things, and they make it worthwhile. And it's great to see people start their careers. I've seen graduates who finished with us 10 years ago who are now, running their own businesses. And you think, wow, I knew you when you were a shy, inexperienced young fella, and now you're running your own business. That's fantastic.
So obviously the big thing that's happened this year is COVID-19, and we can't avoid that. So, what was the intern experience like for the companies and students during the last few months? I mean, students that were here, a lot of them obviously weren't able to come. Were interns working from home? Were activities suspended for a time? Were some of them sort of essential workers that could go into the office? What happened?
Yeah. Look, COVID was a spanner in the works that no one expected, and I think that the word that comes to mind when I think about this, the interns that have gone through this program in this period is resilience. And it's a word that gets bandied about a lot. I think, sometimes unnecessarily, but I really think it applies to this group. They had to adapt to, we had to adapt to online training. So we're typically a face-to-face provider, but, obviously with COVID, we had to move to online training. The students then had to, themselves had to adapt to what that actually meant. And then adapt to that sort of landscape of, from an internship perspective. What is my host prepared to do for me? Are they, do I have to go into the office, and what does that mean? How do I work remotely? And again, when you think about it, you're an international student, ex-international student. You are looking to get your foot in the door in an Australian workplace and start a career this way. And your first experience of it is, we're going to do a remote internship. So you're going to get supervised by somebody on Zoom, kind of like this, and somehow integrate into that environment, into that company, into that business. Meet people. You don't have things like water cooler conversations. You don't have lunches in the kitchen. They have to kind of create their own connections, and that's been a big I think adaptability curve that they've had to sort of move towards, and they've done it really well. Most of our students have been, in fact, virtually all of them have had to go into that sort of remote world. We've been fortunate, I think, by design more than anything else, that we've got a really great team here at Performance Education who work really hard to make sure that we could place all of our students, and so that they were able to continue their program and continue their course and not face delays. Inevitably, with the way the economy was and the way businesses are, there's some issues that happen. But I think, from a student perspective, they were able to continue what they were doing. They would continue to go down that path and adapt to it. And the feedback that we've got has been, this is actually really good. It's a great learning experience. I may not have had the full sort of face-to-face experience, but at the end of the day, that's the way the world's going as of right now. And, as I said in a graduation speech this morning, that, one of the great things that this batch of students is going to have is the ability to say, well, we navigated an environment where no one else has had to sort of deal with it. There's no manual you can read that says, oh, in this environment you do this. They've had to navigate that. They've had to learn that adaptability, and it's a great, you sort of flip it around and go, what's the silver lining? And the silver lining is that it's a great opportunity for them to say to future employers, I have to adapt. Not only did I adapt, I thrive in it, and that's what a lot of our students have been able to do.
Yeah, obviously, you're not able to immerse fully into that culture, as you said, with the water coolers and the lunches and all that face-to-face. But when you talk about real-world experiences, that's this year's real-world experience, having to work remotely. And,
Right.
it's just, they would have, as you said, they've had to do exactly the same sort of things with you. Are some of these paid opportunities, or are they always voluntary, but in the sense that they're being rewarded by, getting the foot in the door, the potential of them being employed, and if not, having a great entry on their resume that makes it so much easier for them to get
Yeah.
work elsewhere.
Yes, the opportunities we have, they're unpaid internships. And, as you say, as you rightly point out, it's very much about the opportunity to gain experience, to learn about the Australian workplace, to get your foot in the door, so to speak. I think the concept of paid internships in Australia isn't particularly prevalent. It'd be great if we could do that. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but I think what the students find is that they do get the experience that they need. And as I said earlier on, everyone wants experience, or every employer is looking for experience. You can't get experience unless you get experience.
And I was also thinking before that during COVID, I mean, there would have been staffing issues and people unavailable, people unwell for whatever reason. So the companies presumably would have actually been, even though they would have had to have trained a new employee or a new internship, person, and work with them over Zoom. I mean, that would have been a valuable resource, and some of them would have been really appreciative of the fact that they suddenly had this extra resource that could, learn some of the most crucial and critical things that they could be doing to help a business in a most crucial and critical time. So, I mean, in a way, that's kind of like, it hasn't just accelerated, life and online learning, but it's accelerated their own learning in a crisis situation.
Absolutely. I mean, I like to think of the silver lining. I like to try and find a silver lining as best I can. And I think, COVID, it has been, on many different levels, it's been a terrible experience for lots of people. I think, from an intern's perspective, and the experience that they've had, it's not ideal. It's far from ideal, as we've said before. But one of the great things about it is exactly that you're going into a company at what in most situations would have been close to sort of crisis mode, crisis management, where trade was down, etc. And they've been able to sort of see that. I think in a lot of cases they've been able to contribute in their own ways. But then just to experience that whole sort of environment, one of the catchphrases that gets sort of bandied about at the moment is, if you can get through this, you can get through anything. And I think, as sort of flippant as that might sound, I think it's actually quite poignant. We're not going to experience, well, hopefully, touch wood, we're not going to experience something like this again. And to get through that, to see that experience, or experience that for yourself, is amazing. And the resilience that you get from that, the ability to adapt, the ability to find solutions is something that, you can spend a whole career not being in that environment where these guys are coming in at the sort of ground level and going, wow, so now I've got to learn how to do this. I've got to adapt to the situation. I've got to make the best I can of the situation. So, there's always a silver lining, I think. And I think we really hope that people have been able to find it. We know that a lot of our students have, and they've come back to tell us that.
Yeah, it helps people to really see that they've got to add some true value. And I'm sure, as you've been saying, many of the students took the opportunity to do just that and shine. And that was long before the pandemic. So look, I always like to finish on 3 questions. And the first one's about the future. So, how do you think the education, internship and business market will evolve over the next decade by 2030? I mean, we're going to have ever faster broadband. There'll be virtual reality and augmented headsets that's going to change the way we interact with business and data and people and objects and all the rest. And obviously there's going to be huge changes to business with ultra high resolution 3D printers and, the Star Trek style atomic replicators that, might take a century or two to arrive, but that'll change manufacturing and business, logistics, everything. So, how do you think just over the next 10 years things might change?
Yeah, look, I think from an education perspective, we're already seeing the industry sort of shift. The traditional models, I suppose, of how universities, for example, have operated have been changing over a period of time, and I think COVID will accelerate that. The concept of, and certainly from our perspective, the concept of face-to-face learning. A lot of education providers are bricks and mortar entities, and that's been turned on its head completely. We were completely bricks and mortar, 25 students in a class up until COVID hit, and then we went to Zoom, and you had to pivot, you had to learn different ways of doing things. I think the emergence of newer sort of video technology and just technology improvements in general is going to drive that more and more. I think what people, as in students, are learning is that, well, actually, if I can do it at home, It's a lot more comfortable for me. It's a lot easier for me to do it. It's a lot more, I can do it in my own time, or, in the comfort of my own home. So we're starting, I think we're going to see a lot more of that shift. Even saying that, I think businesses are the same to a large extent. We've gone from, very rare sort of cases of working from home to everyone having to work from home. And all the sort of the anxiety that's attached to that. Oh, how will we connect? How will we, know what's going on? And you find ways to, I think, keep connected with your team, and that's across borders. And in fact, one of the ironies, or one of the real pluses of having to work remotely, is that we've actually had to connect more. I think we've had the opportunity to connect more with people in different locations, because of the fact that everyone's on Zoom. So it's easy. I mean, we ran 2 days ago. We ran a work trivia night, and we had people from Adelaide joining in, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, and it was great. And you don't normally get the opportunity to do that. So I think businesses are learning how to adapt, and they're learning how to rise to the challenge, I suppose, of working remotely. Having said that, I also think that, at the end of the day, people are people, and we're social creatures. And I think that we will start to see a bit more of that return to what was normal, I suppose, and a bit more but I think when we do connect with people, we're going to see a lot more closer connections. It's not going to be that sort of superficial connection. So, I think the future is pretty bright. I know that there's a lot of concern, particularly around international education, with borders being what they are. I think that we will find, and we always have as an industry, and Australia is massively dependent on international education. We have to find a way to re-attract students to us, and I think we will. We're doing really well with controlling the virus and making it a safe place. So I think we'll start to see over the next year or so, a trickle, and then hopefully a flood of students coming back to us, because we do provide a quality outcome. We do provide a quality, we are a quality industry, and a world leader in it.
And you have a great track record, and it can be seen just from the companies and students. So my second last question is always to simply ask you, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received to help you get where you are today?
It's a good question. The best piece of advice I ever got was when I would have been, I don't know, about 5 or 6, and my mum gave it to me. And my mum, she said to me, when you get asked a question by your boss, don't ever say, no, I don't know. She said, never say, I don't know. And if you don't know, then your answer is, look, I'm not sure, but I will find out. Can I get back to you? And it's a really simple piece of advice. But it's something that stuck with me, and I think that I've built sort of my career on that, where it's easy to say no, it's easy to say I can't do that, it's too difficult. But if you actually go, well, let me think about that, let me find a way, or let me learn how to do it. You can always teach yourself something, and if you can't teach yourself that, you can always find someone that can actually either help you do it or do it for you. You can always bring resources in, I suppose, to do that. But it's a piece of advice that stuck with me. And it has stuck with me all my life. It's that, don't say no, I can't do it. Go and find out how. And I think it's important. I think it's important whether you're a 5-year-old or a 45-year-old or a 95-year-old. Never stop learning.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's all good and well if you can say yes because you know how to do it. But then there are those people who say yes and they're learning how to do it because, IT guys are famous for that. Yeah, I can do it, and they learn. Yeah. But then you've got to be worried about the people who say yes and have got no idea. They're just trying anything. You want to be honest about it because people appreciate the honesty and can see that you're keen to learn. And it's not. I mean, there's always that moment of stepping out of your comfort zone when you learn something new where it sort of feels weird. But once we've learned something, suddenly something becomes second nature. And I think we're afraid of that. That moment of sort of unwariness about I don't know that yet, so I don't want to know about it. But stepping forward and being bold and brave and learning something new. Anyone who's driven a manual knows how it was to change those gears. And now we don't think about it. We don't think, we're the automatic, And of course, when you drive an automatic, then you're like, wow, this is great. But no, that's good advice. And your mother was very smart.
She's a wise woman. But I think the magic of it is that if you're constantly pushing the boundaries of what you're constantly learning. It's scary, as you said before. It's scary when you're doing it, but when you look back at it, those are sort of, I find certainly those are the magic moments in life where you go, wow, I had no idea what I was doing there. one of my first jobs was in marketing, and I knew nothing about marketing, and my boss said, go and create a marketing plan for this project. And I went, sure, went downstairs to the office, Googled what is a marketing plan, and then sort of built it based on that. But it was terrifying, because in that process you're going, oh my God, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And then you learn, you make mistakes. And I think people forget that, we're all people, right? Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone knows that you're going to make a mistake. So, and it's fine. I think there are very few people in the world that will, absolutely punish you for making a mistake, as long as it's with the right intentions. It's not a deliberate mistake. But it's the only way you're going to learn. You fail at the edges of your experience, right? So if you keep pushing that experience and forward, then you're going to keep learning.
So what is your final message for ITY viewers and readers, and for the companies and interns that you work with?
Look, I think for the companies that work with us or would like to work with us, get in touch with us, performance.edu.au, and speak to one of our corporate partnerships executives, where we will walk you through the process. It's a really simple process. We'll provide you with the tools to be able to support an intern through that, and make sure that it's a good experience for both you and the student. I suppose from a intern perspective, or for somebody who's coming into the industry, it's a challenging time. It's the understatement of the year. It is a challenging time, and there's going to be obstacles, and it's going to be at times they're going to seem quite insurmountable. They're not. That phrase comes to mind. It's always darkest before the dawn. You've got to persevere. You've got to have a fair degree of perseverance about you. Rejection's normal, and it's part of the process. Every rejection, you're one step closer to your acceptance. So don't give up on anything. Don't give up on yourselves. Because I think with the students that we see, certainly, people that are starting out a career, you've worked really hard for your qualifications. You've done the work. There is a market out there, and you will be successful. But don't be in a hurry. Sometimes you've got to take the staircase, not the elevator.
Well, David Phua, CEO of Performance Education, thank you very much for your time, and I hope we can speak again in the future.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.